Good afternoon. Welcome, everyone, to today's LinkedIn Live. Our topic today is transportation costs, the impacts, and how to gain visibility to the right data. My name is Brian Blaylock. I'm the Director of Client Development here at Blue Grace, and I've got two great guests with me today. I'm excited to introduce to you. The first is Todd Trumpeter. Todd is the Vice President of Logistics Operations here at Blue Grace. And Todd, thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks, Brian. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. And our next guest is Brian Williams. Brian is the manager of our supply chain engineering team. And I lean into his team quite a bit. Brian, thank you so much for being here today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So listen, we're going to go ahead and just jump right in. Got a few topics I want to cover, but listen, let's take the conversation wherever it goes. Todd, I know there's many factors that influence the cost of transportation for our partners, but what do you find is the most consistent and most important data point or points for success in the supply chain?
Sure. Thanks, Brian. So that question can probably be answered a bunch of different ways. I think if you surveyed a bunch of different customers, you'd hear, I like to look at cost per pound. I like to look at cost per mile. In reality, it's really what's most important to that customer and how they can make the best decisions. So we like to make sure we're providing all that data and having those discussions with the clients. I'll give you an example of a client that we've had for a long time that they actually make cookies. So when we started working with them, they really could only see, the cost of their entire shipment. They're having a little bit of trouble on, properly pricing the products. They wanted to see that cost per cookie. That was the most important thing to them and something they never had visibility to. So we helped them get visibility all the way to that cost per cookie so they can make better decisions, how to price, become more competitive, and really understand their true cost to serve. So really it's a bunch of different things that we look at, and it's about collaboration with that client, making sure we understand what they're looking for and providing them the data to make those decisions.
I love a great example, and I'm familiar with that company, big fan. And I love that we are able to get that granular with it. And Brian, talk to me about the value that you see in analyzing freight at a very granular level for a new partner before we begin to execute shipments, and what do we do better as a result of doing that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's important to look at the data, before go live to validate assumptions that were made during the sales process, but also confirm anything that we've learned through through meetings and on-site visits, and really just trying to identify any discrepancies, inconsistencies on the front end so that we avoid any potential surprises down the road. I'm looking for things like the carrier mix. Is there evidence of any preferred carrier routing? They making use of premium carriers? What types of customers, consignees? Are there delivery requirements, appointments, lift gates, residential, limited access, that sort of thing? Looking to see if there are any unique equipment types for the truckload. Are they going through the spot market? Do they have contracted pricing? They have actual class in their data, or are they making use of FAKs? And really just trying to compare a bunch of KPIs to what we think that we know about their business to have a better understanding of their freight profile.
That's great, Brian. And it's so important to get started on the right foot, and so much of that comes from that data. Excuse me. And Todd, your teams turn that analysis from the engineering team into action. They turn it into execution. What are some of the pitfalls of not having those details when helping a partner manage their transportation?
Yeah, I'd say probably one of the biggest pitfalls is just having to make assumptions. I think you're always going to have to make some assumptions when dealing with large pieces of data and making, decisions like that. But in reality, if you don't have a lot of that good data up front, you have to make more assumptions. That's part of what we as Blue Grace really help our customers through is we look at that historical data, we look at historical averages, and then we are always looking at our plan versus actual. So if we don't have great data up front, we'll help make the best assumptions we can. We gather more and more data over time to make sure it's clean and gets cleaner over time. And then we're looking at that plan versus actual. So we're setting that baseline plan, we're measuring it against what actually happens, and then using that data to make good decisions. And over time, that data gets better and better and better. But the more you can start up front with clean data, obviously you're going to be able to make some better decisions earlier on.
No, I agree 100%. And I guess we talked about this, you and I, just the other day, Todd, and all is not lost if the data is not fantastic to begin with. That's the reason you want to be in a place where you can start capturing better data. So I'm assuming there's times where the data only gets good after we work with people for a few months and capture the data. So is that fair?
That's very fair. Yes.
And Brian, we hear the term actionable intelligence. We throw it around the industry. I probably say it too much. We hear it all the time. As we continue looking for improvements for our partners, what are some of the data points that get the most attention and drive the most action for those partners?
Yeah, so that's actually the most fun type of work that I get to do is, we're looking at various KPIs and trying to identify which areas, we can find a continuous improvement type project to drive real value for our partners. So I'll look at things like DC footprint and routing patterns to see if they're consistently shipping from the appropriate DCs to minimize costs. Looking for multiple orders to the same customer in the same week for potential of order consolidation, mode conversion, and potentially multi-stop truckloads. Looking at LCC utilization to see if are they consistently using that least cost carrier to move the freight, and if not, is there a legitimate reason that the service requirements that we need to build into our own routing logic. And then things like minimum order quantities. But if there's evidence they're consistently getting hit with minimum charges, then we may recommend that if you establish a minimum order quantity or provide incentives to customers to increase the order size, you can lower your cost per pound and get better utilization on your freight.
Yeah, it's so true, Brian. I mean, it's interesting that you say that because it doesn't just drive down freight as a percentage of goods. It creates the opportunity for more sales, right? If we can be a better supplier to our customers because we can reduce that cost, then it gives us an opportunity to sell more stuff, right? So that's what I look forward to the most, is being a business partner to these companies. So I appreciate that answer. And Todd, this one it will be a little bit of a loaded question. So supply chain data affects more than the company's shipping department. We just stuck our toe in the water on that a little bit. Talk to me about how the different stakeholders will use the supply chain data.
Sure. And Brian just gave a bunch of different examples of the pieces of data these folks will use. But, realistically, if you look across, all different levels of the company, starting at, the customer service or the folks on the dock, they're utilizing a lot of the tools to make sure they're selecting the right carrier at the right cost and the right service. Looking at track and trace reporting and data that's provided. You move up a level and you start looking at some of the, transportation managers or directors. They're using some of the reports Brian just mentioned, least cost carrier utilization. So are their teams executing to the plan? If not, why? And why are we seeing those missed opportunities? Looking at, data of where should I put my locations? Some of the more detailed engineering studies that Brian's team does. If we want to move a warehouse, if we want to shut down a location, using that type of data to make sure what those impacts are. And then you go all the way up to the CFO, COOs, looking at what is their true cost to serve their customers? How do I get more competitive? To your point, Brian, how do I make more sales? So, understanding the true cost will allow you to make sure you're pricing your product correctly. Am I charging my customers the right amount for freight? All of that type of detail goes into that work at all different levels. So, when we go through our implementation process, we spend a lot of time with each group looking at understanding what type of data do they have today and how are they using it, and how can we improve that for them.
So such important stuff, and it's so interesting how there are so many different stakeholders that didn't think that shipping information or supply chain information really mattered. But how do you know where to spend your money? How do you know where to acquire a new customer? How do you know what to charge a customer? All that information can be found with doing a better job of putting visibility on what you move, right? So, Brian, talk to me about some of the new analytics. What's new on the supply chain front, and how have you seen some of those data points affect our partners? And feel free to take that wherever you want to take it.
In terms of what's new, in supply chain and logistics, I think the biggest trend that I've noticed is, more interest in, shippers' entire carbon footprint. So looking at ways to lower, emissions. In response to that, we've added a bunch of KPIs to our reports so we can start tracking that, look at trend lines, and we're starting to include that when we're identifying, continuous improvement type projects. we're looking at what is the overall impact, how much can we reduce those emissions. And it's been really cool to be able to see that in real time. We see, the date that we implemented a project, and we see that, reduction in emissions.
That's a great example, Brian. It's so funny because I just started seeing that on some of the diagnostics toward the end of last year that you were sharing with me. And I can tell you that it makes jaws drop when we present some of that information. So knowing that if you're trying to enter into a consolidation plan, there's more reasons than just the cost of the freight to take in consideration. And whether it's, tax credits or just the type of profile you're trying to create for your company, ESG scorecards, there's just so much that can be accomplished with just measuring something that you're already doing, right? So I love that answer. I'm glad that's where you decided to take that one. And Todd, I want to talk about the impact of supply chain data, but I want to talk about the proactive impact of supply chain data, because I think sometimes it's too easy to look backwards and think about things instead of taking action on it real time. I hosted a meeting with another one of our leaders from Managed Logistics team, and he made a point that stuck with me. Lots of companies in our space will review data with customers, once a quarter or however often they do that, and they'll share with them how much money they could have saved them if they had done things differently. And his question to me was, why didn't you? That's a great question. So my question to you is, how do we stay on top of trends and make changes in real time to drive down costs and improve the experience for our partners?
Sure. Yeah, there's a bunch of different ways that we do that, Brian. I'll give you a couple examples. We just recently re-racked this a little bit, but we look at Brian's team and the folks on his team from an engineering standpoint, and we assign engineers to different accounts to work hand in hand with our operations teams. That gives just another eye on the data, on what's going on with that customer, so they can find trends. And yeah, you're going to look a little bit historically, but that'll allow you to then be proactive and come to that customer and say, hey, if you do this, these are the things you'll see, and then we help monitor that. It's also a lot of collaboration. It's our operational teams, our engineering teams collaborating with those clients, listening to the customers, understanding what are they trying to accomplish, what are their goals, and then how do we help them get there. Putting projects in front of them. Continuous improvement is a huge thing that we drive across all of our teams, operations, engineering, account management, to focus and make sure that we are putting projects in front of our clients to make sure we're driving efficiencies. It's not always just the dollar cost savings, but how can we save them time? How can we make their processes more efficient? So using different tools, that's how we do that. And we're constantly looking at changing our tools as well. We go through and do RFPs for our customers. We just built a new tool internally to help drive more efficiency there and start putting that in front of our clients as well. So it's just having a lot of people that are really looking to improve all the time, and then collaborating with our clients, whether it's in the monthly reviews, the quarterly reviews, and making sure that we're always bringing new ideas to them.
I love that. It's so much more important than just tracking a shipment, right? Yes. There's a lot of things that happen, and paying attention. I love the way that, Todd, I've seen how you kind of build out the teams around managed customers, and an engineer is part of that team. So making sure that somebody is seeing what is going on and asking the question. You can't always change the way that you deliver to a customer, but here's what's happening if you can, and here's how you explain it if you can't, right? You either got to have an explanation or you got to have a solution, one of those two things when you're working. So a great answer. And Brian, I'm going to ask you kind of the $1 million question. How does a customer get started creating a more data-driven supply chain?
Yeah, well, I think it's right there in the phrasing. It starts with capturing the right data, making sure you can cleanse that data, and get the proper visibility to it so you can start making more informed decisions. And to me, that's a TMS that can seamlessly integrate with ERPs and any other internal systems, the right BI and reporting software with the reports that give you visibility to the right KPIs, and then an experienced team that knows how to execute on the data, the KPIs, and identify what you can do to generate new value for an organization. I think that's a lot of shippers are probably well equipped to do that themselves, but for others, they may need to find a strong partner, with industry experts like Blue Grace, and that's where my team can come into the equation. That's what we love to do. We love to get to know new businesses, understand everything from the high level strategy down to operational requirements and the nitty gritty and the data, pulling it all together to create that picture and find where we can create real value.
Love it. And it's, obviously this isn't a commercial for Blue Grace. We appreciate everyone taking the time to step in and listen to us today. And we hope that some of these things are things that you can hold whoever you are working with accountable to, so things can be better, because certainly our economy runs smoother when we pay attention to how we manage supply chains. It's been a hot topic for years now, and we want to make sure that all the tools that we can put in place to make sure we are as successful as possible are put in place. And so, Todd, I'm going to kind of let you bring that home for us. If there's one thing that the folks that joined us today can take away to better control cost of transportation, to improve the supply chain, what would it be?
Yeah, sound like a little bit of a broken record, but it's control of your data. Making sure you have access to the right data, a focus on continuous improvement. Those are the most critical things. I sat in front of a customer about a week ago who they had made some fantastic changes in their network. They consolidated a bunch of their business units. They were shipping larger orders, driving their cost per pound down, but they actually had no idea if it was having the impact that they wanted it to. And it was the data that we were able to share with them that at least showed those results. So they were doing all the right things, but they actually weren't sure it had the effect. So controlling your data, access, having that visibility so that you can make the right decisions and be more strategic, that's the key to being successful for sure.
I love that. And it's interesting. We talk about all the things you want to fix in the supply chain, but you won't be able to fix anything if you can't measure it. So that's why this topic, I think, was a great one for us today. And Todd, I appreciate you being here. Brian, I appreciate you being here to lead that topic. But most importantly, we appreciate all of you that logged in today and shared some of your time with us. There's a QR code at the top of the screen there. If you don't have a way to be able to cleanly analyze your data today, and you would like for us to assist you with that, feel free to scan that code. It'll take you to a page where we can tell you how to do exactly that. You're also welcome to reach out to any of the guys on the call here today, and we're happy to steer you in the right direction. And as always, we really appreciate you giving us your time and your attention to go through things that we think are very important, and we look forward to seeing you the next time.